Hi everybody, welcome to another camera review. This time we are reviewing the A6100 from the A6000 series from the Sony mirrorless Alpha series. So there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right into it. So it is $600 freaking dollars for an APS-C Photo video camera, shoots in 4K. That is really good. It has a flip back screen. So I was curious how it is for the filmmaker as well as the blogger. So APS-C shoots in close to S35 sensor size. Gives you very nice bokeh. On the top, you just have this one control wheel as well as the side control wheel, but you don't have any front control wheel. So your exposure triangle is going to need a little bit more wiggling around with to find the settings that you like. Now, the grip is good for holding normally and also reverse, as you saw over there. You see the shoe mount is, however, what would block the screen if you put a mic on it. So speaking of mic, there's the mic input, there's the HDMI, and then there's the multi kind of a micro HDMI input right there. And if you look at the back, it's, you know, the usual controls with the A6000 series are all there, turning this sucker on. So thankfully, even though there aren't any custom buttons on the top, other than that one little one, I'm used to having 3 custom buttons in the higher end A6000 series. At least you can hit the wheel buttons and like control the ISO and such. Now, the function button actually brings up a lot of little operations that you would normally want with those custom buttons, so I guess it's not that big of a deal breaker. As with any Sony camera, the menus are insane. It's pretty solid. My only one gripe, really, is the fact that they could not have moved the shoe mount to somewhere else that doesn't block the screen. But I guess there's just only so much real estate on this thing, so I guess I shouldn't complain that much. Now let's go right into the actual tests, which what you guys are all here for. Let's go into resolving power, shall we? Now I tested on this high detail thing in the backyard, and my main concern was seeing if Ultra HD is still way better, the only way to go compared to full HD. When you zoom into 200%, yeah, it's mushy mush. This is all with +0 sharpness, by the way. So it's mushy mush. It's definitely not just 1/4 the resolution. It's all that pixel binning and makes it look more like 1/8, 1/10, or whatever. Now, if you plus the sharpness on the full HD, sort of helps, not really. It actually just makes it look worse, honestly. But let's take a look at different frame rates compared to full HD 24. As you can see here, once you go to 60p, it does get a little bit softer. If you find full HD 24p acceptable, well, it becomes a little bit less acceptable in 60p. Now, when you go to 120p, even less acceptable because it has to crop into the sensor in order to see, in order to scan that fast, that 120 frames per second. -3 sharpness, you'll see quite a more natural look when you're in Ultra HD. I highly recommend shooting this thing in Ultra HD for most of anything, really. You can shoot at 60 megabits per second. That's what I did most of my tests in. Now, the only thing is that you have to switch your temperature control or temperature shutdown level to high, because if it's normal, you could shut down in 4K even at room temperature as low as, what was it, around 30 minutes running time or 45 minutes, which kind of sucks because, you know, this thing can record infinitely. It's great that it doesn't stop recording due to card file size limitations, but when it overheats and it stops that way, all right, so you only get really 4 creative styles because you don't get picture profiles. Now, from these, I kind of prefer standard and portrait. So landscape indoors, way too crunchy. Vivid, a little bit too crunchy as well. Standard and portrait seems to be nice and even. So I filmed myself. In standard, vivid, and landscape, it all felt kind of unnatural. This is all you want to overexpose a little bit with this camera. This is all that's kind of +0 exposure at the on the face. But with that, portrait looks a bit better. But I wanted to test out portrait and standard at -3 contrast. Lower the contrast all the way. And it does look like you get a lot more latitude, and really is the only way that you can get more latitude with this lower end camera. This is the A6100, not A6600. And it is just $600. I think my opinion leans towards portrait -3 contrast. In this scene, if I wanted completely clean whites in the background, I'll probably keep contrast to normal. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is low light. Now, this thing touts the 51,200 ISO as its max, but in video mode, it maxed out at 32,000. Yeah. So anyway, I have this fun little messy, what do you call this place? A studio. I'm in a studio right now. And then let's take a look at 800. I recommend streaming this in 4K if your bandwidth could take it, so you can see the details better. Otherwise, if you're streaming in like 720p or something, this will be hard to see, but I will be zooming in soon. Now, scraggliness comes up around 3200 ISO, and then at 6400 ISO is kind of my threshold of what is acceptable. Of course, with bloggers that are in really dark places that don't have lighting, they're shooting events or something, may consider that just okay. Now let's take a look at 32,000. Now, even without zooming in or in 4K, you should be able to see all that scraggling noise. Now let's zoom in. Take a look at this little section here that also has some more black. We're gonna go through these in a relatively brisk pace. Now this is with noise reduction at normal. And we are also going to look at noise reduction off. There's also low, high ISO noise reduction, but I find my results kind of interesting and also not so video oriented. I find them out. This is at 300%, by the way. Okay, now at 6400 ISO, you see that grain. And as we go higher, even more grain. So honestly, with a, okay, you might be more of a 3200 ISO acceptability kind of guy or girl. Looking at this camera, but I think I feel comfortable shooting at 6400 ISO depending on my scene, whether I'm clipping what I want to see or not. Let's forget about 32,000 ISO. You can see that there really isn't much difference with noise reduction off, at least at 1600 and even 3200 ISO. I'm not gonna go through every ISO in between for this example. I am just gonna go to the big ones. So 6400 ISO. Only difference I see is probably I had this on auto white balance. So, and even at 32,000 ISO, that noise reduction doesn't seem to do anything. Some people hate noise reduction. Some people want out of the camera for the noise to be reduced. So some people just want to be able to control that themselves in post. So for the people that want it straight out of the camera, it doesn't seem like there are any settings that actually affect that. Now let's look into another thing that actually bloggers would love to prioritize. And if it's something super important to you, check this out. This is about autofocus. Okay, so this is the autofocus test with the responsive / fast. There are two settings, responsive and fast, that determines how quickly it locks on or switches. Now in normal / standard autofocus settings, there isn't that much difference. It overall kills the G7X Mark III, which doesn't have dual pixel AF. Well, Trevor has once before said that dual pixel AF and phase detection on the Sonys are about the same. And I agree, but dual pixel AF is not going to be on every single camera. Now I'm going to show a bit of the face detect, and you can see that with my daughter, the camera's not getting confused with what it's shooting. Not with necessarily a face. If I wanted to focus on those berries, I could touch the screen and it will focus on that. But I just wanted to see how the AI reacted. And it locked onto that fork just right. And check this out. When my daughter took the fork back, it snapped right onto there. Even without switching to animal mode. Shemp the cat, locked on. Pulling back. Shemp the cat, locked on. Pushing in, Shemp the cat, locked on. But let's take this on for an even greater ride with a walking toddler. As you know, animals and kids, really hard to film. People say you shouldn't even try because it's such a headache. But here I am filming my daughter, wanting her to be in focus and wondering if the camera will use this artificial intelligent phase detect to lock on the right thing. The one case in which it didn't was this wall in the shade, which I think is that perfect combination of things that'll throw it off. It does not see a face. It goes like, well, okay, well, that's sunny, but I see my foreground is probably the priority here. I don't see a human, so that is the problem. But if a human face is right there, look, I didn't put sunscreen evenly on her face, I didn't do her hair or redo her hair. I'm a horrible dad, aren't I? But walking around, you can see that it is nice and solid on lock-on. Is anybody going to comment on the live stream here? No, you're just creepers. Okay, this is the best example. In telephoto, this is f4 outside. You can see it locking straight back onto that face. It gets a little confused. Wait, do you want that bright part or the car in focus? But right back onto my daughter, super, super fast. So what do you guys think? Is that awesome or not? So if you really prioritize autofocus, and also if you have this on the gimbal and you really wanted to find that focus really fast, this measures up to the rest of the phase detect autofocus cameras in the Sony mirrorless lineup. Now next, which is more important for people that are in crazy lighting situations or bloggers that really want good automatic exposure with EV compensation, this test is me out in horrible lighting. We are at aperture priority plus 2/3 of a stop. If you shoot auto exposure, absolutely recommend tweaking this. But when you go into backlit situation, it doesn't adjust nearly as well as the G7X Mark III that we had reviewed last week. Was that just last week? I don't know. So you can see that my daughter here, I had to +2 EV to get these results. You know, so it's you really have to crank that auto exposure EV aperture. What do you call it? Aperture priority EV exposure compensation. I have drank too much coffee, so my mind is all over the place. But anyway, so you have to remember when you're in backlit scenes with this camera and you're using auto exposure because you're like lazy, like I am sometimes. You still have to play with the exposure compensation. Plenty. Now, I shot a little blog with the in-camera mic to show you how straight out of the camera the results will look. This has no grading, no audio sweetening whatsoever. So let's take a look at what the results are, continuing my little adventure trying to clean up my studio. All right, this is the continuing adventures of getting my little studio area clean, and we're just gonna focus on this table now. Okay, so the first thing I gotta do before I get started is to vacuum up this dead spider that kind of freaked me out as I was cleaning stuff up. Okay, we're just taking a break from cleaning because I don't want to anymore. Just hanging with my daughter who is using her mouth to try to pry open a, whatchamacallit, battery case. Battery is about to run out because this is an FW50 battery like all previous generations. And this is me doing autofocus fun here while looking up at the screen. Okay, so that turned out decently well. Audio, you know, in-camera mic's just okay. I do make a mention of something in the ergonomics I forgot to mention, which is battery life with the FW50 batteries. If you have the, the OEM batteries, FW50 batteries, you should get about like an hour on a full charge from this camera. If you get the third-party ones, I've had bad experience with the FW50 type third-party batteries. I could get as little as 30 or even 25 minutes on those. Now it depends on if you have HDMI output accessories, how bright the screen is, etc. So your mileage may vary in different situations. So I want to talk about audio a little bit, and I did mention how the shoe mount where you would put a mic is right in the way. And once again, for some reason, the answer was this U-rig cage. This is the third U-rig thing I've talked about in my reviews. I'm like, what? Does it look like I'm sponsored? Probably does, but no, it's just me looking on Amazon. So it adds a shoe mount to the right, which is out of the way. You can now put a Rode VideoMic Pro onto the side, but of course, since that's the only space you have in order to add a shoe mount, you have to cross that cable over. That's a little bit annoying. So with the Rode Link Go, that cable guy that goes in the way, so you have to wrap it there. So I'm gonna actually show you a few audio tests that I did first with the on-camera mics, and then I show you the Rode Link Go, and then the video mic. So this is with the on-camera mic inside of my office, and we're gonna see if this is somewhat usable. This is in a moderately echoey place. Well, lots of hard surfaces all around, but not like encased. This is with some wind and a decent amount of background noise from chimes, and we're gonna see how this does. We have the in-camera mic in a very, very echoey place. We're gonna see how bad it is. Right now, the audio levels are tuned down a little bit. This is in a very echoey chamber over here, and we are on the Rode Link Wireless Go with very shaggy hair and a dark, dark, dark backlit scene. And this with the Rode Video Mic Pro with a bunch of stuff going in the background. This is pointed right at me. And we're gonna see how well it does with localizing to just my face. What are your thoughts on these audio tests here? I personally kind of prefer the Video Mic Pro. It feels the most natural, especially in that super echoey place. It cut out decent amount of background noise and echo. My kid was going crazy in the background. I think my jam is the Video Mic Pro. And that's actually what I decided to use in for the little video that I teased to you guys over the last couple of streams, which is my wife cutting my hair. So this is with the Video Mic Pro and the U-Rig. Hi everybody, so you can see me without any hair product on right now because my wife is about to give me a haircut. Look how shaggy it is. So my wife just informed me that she reserves the right to shave my head if she feels like it, despite me saying no, 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 no. So just so you guys know, I'm using a Rode microphone on the U-Rig so I can actually see myself instead of having the mic block it, the actual screen. So this is a test of how this vlogging rig works.
Here we go. Hi. Okay. How do I do this?
How do you do this? Okay. She didn't even look up a YouTube video before.
I did not.
Oh my god.
Good thing this is just hair.
Instead of like you trying to perform a circumcision on me.
Oh my god, look at all that. Oops.
Well, I'm glad she's having a good time.
Can I go down this foot? Oh shoot.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. What just happened?
Well, now we know.
We know what?
Did I do like right here is all bald. See, there's hair here. And then there's no hair here. This is so awful. This right here, I don't know, dude. I did not do that. So. See, this side, I think is a good side. I mean, this is the part where hair was never there. No hair over the ear. Mission accomplished, okay? See? I got the job done.
Lesson learned. Before you have your wife cut your hair, make sure that she make sure you at least have her sit down and watch a couple of YouTube videos. Thanks, honey, though, for your time. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I could hide it with a little bit of hair product and not turning my head, but that's what you have it. We're gonna try again with the next camera test. Okay, so what do you think of the results here? There was absolutely no color grading. I didn't put a music bed underneath, just so you could hear the Video Mic Pro better. Yeah, that's with the portrait -3 contrast creative style. So what do you guys think from the footage that you saw so far? For filmmakers out there, what do you think? Does this seem like a good B or C camera for your kit? Can you live without the picture profiles? So my conclusions are for a blogger, as long as you're okay with spending an extra $50 for that cage, and you know, having an exterior mic, this is a great blogging tool. I mean, I highly recommend you shoot in 4K for the best results. But as a blogger, I really like this thing, especially with the cage. So my vote is yes for blogging, for filmmaking. What are your thoughts according to these tests? And if you have your own experiences with the A6000 series, please jot them down in the comments. Now, we have a few comments from Trevor, my BFF from these live streams. So for some people, yeah, I'm not an AF fan on any platform. I understand it's important to other people, though. Yeah, you're one of those purists that like manual focus all the time. I was manual focus all the time until I saw the power of the phase detect autofocus and realized that because I originated in shooting on a Steadicam, that was my jam from the very beginning. You know, autofocus just became kind of important for me in that sense. Now, another thing that Trevor said, I've always felt like Sony needs to work on their internal sharpening algorithms too. It's just too high. You could say that with most cameras, actually. I mean, is there a camera series that you know, brand that you think does sharpening right? I don't know. I think maybe Lumix is a little bit better, a little bit less halo effect, but otherwise, sharpening is sharpening. You want to sharpen in post for most control. With the cameras, they just kind of do their thing. You don't really have much of a choice. Audio for Sony has always been a strong suit, and it should be. From the Walkman to the Discman, Sony has always excelled with audio. Sony have, I don't know which we call them plural. Yeah, I actually never really noticed that. So I really need to take a closer look at the preamps of the Sony versus preamps of other cameras, mirrorless cameras, more specifically. But yeah, have you noticed a difference? Have you kind of compared between the two? Which has a better preamp? That is the end of the official live stream, and we could just chit chat a little bit and talk random crap. Remember to like and subscribe to hear when we have other live streams scheduled. Next coming up, I believe I'm talking about Pro Mist filters, the 1/8 Pro Mist filter, and if I think that it's something that I would leave on all the time. I would love you guys to join in on that to see the results as well. And of course, to support the channel, please click on one of the links below, even if you're not buying. And if you're planning on buying this camera, even better, click that link in order to buy the camera or the cage. And that is a wrap. See you guys later.